Chair, I actually want to thank the member for actually explaining the playbook from the Democrats that seems to be on display every single day, whether here in these chambers or on any major news network or in any major newspaper in the United States. The purpose of the HRES is quite simple: to get information from the president with respect to the business dealings of his son. Now, the president has told us time and time again, frankly, it's a lie, but the president has told us time and time again that he has no idea what his son is actually doing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that is the dumbest thing we've all heard. I have 3 sons. I've been away from my sons for 10 days, but trust me, I know exactly what they're doing. It doesn't take me long to pick up a phone and ask or to find out. The president knows what his son is engaged in. What his son is primarily being engaged in is a mineral called cobalt. Let's educate the committee on cobalt. Cobalt is a mineral, a metal that is essential in the manufacturing of electric vehicles. Cobalt is one of the most important components of electric car batteries, solar panels, and other renewable energy sources. A Tesla long-range vehicle requires 10 pounds of cobalt, more than 400 times the amount of cobalt needed in a cell phone. 2/3 of the world's cobalt production comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Hunter Biden has been heavily involved in the 2016 sale of a cobalt mine in the Democratic Republic of the Congo to a company that is a Chinese company. He was very involved. The New York Times has reported on his level of involvement. So do you mean to tell me that Joe Biden, who was a former vice president of the United States, then candidate for the presidency of the United States, now president of the United States, had no idea that his son was engaged in the sale of a cobalt mine to a Chinese company at the same time when the centerpiece of Joe Biden's energy policy is electric cars in the United States and more green technology? I mean, come on, folks. That is just crazy. You can sit here and try to lecture us about the leaks at Mar-a-Lago, which, by the way, let me also state for the record for the American people, there have been no hearings, there have been no classified briefings about documents at Mar-a-Lago. So the members of Congress who are saying what they know, what they're talking about are leaks into the news media, which, by the way, are illegal. Leaks that are coming either A, from the Department of Justice, or B, from the FBI. We don't know because the press protects their sources. But if you're citing that, that is illegal information obtained by the press with active investigations. But let's go back to Hunter Biden. The chairman is, the ranking member is correct. There are changes by Joe Biden to the ability for Congress to get suspicious activity reports. I am a recovering banker. When we issue suspicious activity reports, it's not just thrown out like a mere bag of shells. It's done for specific reasons because there are concerns about criminalities surrounding the financial transaction. If Hunter Biden and other members of the Biden family have more than 100 suspicious activity reports, Congress does need to know about this because a funny thing's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Joe Biden is president of the United States. His son, who's not a kid, by the way, the man's 50 years old. He ain't a kid, okay? His son is running around the world cutting deals. His son is involved in suspicious activity reports where financial institutions are making that readily, or have actually drafted those documents. And Congress doesn't want to know? We don't want to have oversight now? I find it interesting. I think it's very clear that the members of the majority party do have a playbook when it comes to smearing their political opponents. They talked about several people, like Lois Lerner. Yeah, she was discriminating against Tea Party groups. That was a fact. Like Benghazi, yes, there was a dilatory effects at the Department of State that led to the death of 4 people that serviced our country and served our country. That did occur. And the one thing we already know is occurring, not through conjecture, because the documents of the transactions are quite clear. Hunter Biden was readily involved in the transactions dealing with Chinese companies for a mineral that is critical to the Democrat agenda with respect to the Green New Deal. If Congress should not investigate what's going on between Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, then I don't even know what we're doing here, folks. We might as well just wait till the midterms are over. I yield back.
The gentleman yields.
I'm going to pose another question.
to my colleagues across the aisle. Does anyone in the majority party dispute our allegations that Hunter Biden was influence peddling with our adversaries? And I'm sure they'll want to have time to speak to dispute that. The comments that you all have already made are going to age about as well as your comments about Louis DeJoy trying to sabotage the absentee ballots, or as well as your demanding that the oil CEOs cut production in this hearing at a time when gas rates were doubling and tripling. So we asked for a lot of preservation of documents. We're going to preserve the comments that everyone on your side has said about there's nothing to see here, when you don't dispute the simple fact that Hunter Biden and the president's brother, now let's not leave him out of the equation, they have been influence peddling for decades. Now, again, you want to call it a Hunter Biden investigation. Again, I want to remind the American people, we are investigating Hunter Biden because we fear that he has compromised Joe Biden, which is compromising our national security. I will conclude by saying this. There are two people who were in business with Hunter Biden who are already publicly on the record as saying that Joe Biden was the big guy, that Joe Biden was getting 10% ownership in a Chinese company. That was Bob Alinsky. He said that in a primetime TV interview. We've all seen that. And Gilliard on a phone call, on a recorded phone message. Both gentlemen were close Hunter Biden associates. Both gentlemen said Joe Biden was the big guy getting 10%. Folks, that's a national security risk right there.
Gentleman, time has expired. Representative Raskin, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to contrast the laser focus of the majority and the laser focus of the minority. We have been laser focused on advancing the public interest and the common good. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which dramatically reduces health care costs for the American people. It limits what diabetics have to pay for insulin in the Medicare program to $35 a month. That's a life-saving breakthrough by the Democratic majority with no support from anyone on their side. We made another record breakthrough by limiting to $2,000 a year the out-of-pocket health care costs of any Medicare beneficiary in the country, and we made a record investment in renewable and green energy to make serious progress against climate change, which some of our colleagues still deny even exists. We passed the Infrastructure Act, a $1.2 trillion investment in the roads and the highways, the bridges, the ports, the airports, cybersecurity. In the last administration, they had an infrastructure day, they had an infrastructure week, they had an infrastructure month. They just didn't have an infrastructure bill. And after 4 years, nothing from them. But in the very first year of President Biden's administration, we got it done. A massive investment in the infrastructure needs of America, which now some of our colleagues across the aisle are trying to take credit for back in their districts, even though they voted against it here in Washington. And of course, we are laser focused on defending the rights of the American people, the rights of American women that have been put in danger by their gerrymandered, Trumpified Supreme Court, which overturned Roe versus Wade, a precedent for more than 50 years in our country. And now they are marching all over America, their anti-abortion movement, to try to destroy women's right to choose their own health care in consultation with their families, to choose their own destiny, to do their own planning about their families and careers and so on. Senator Lindsey Graham introduces a federal measure now to take it away from the states. Originally, their rhetoric was, oh, states' rights. Now they want to take it away from the states and have a national criminal ban on women's right to choose. And in their desperate effort to distract from that and all of the other absurdities of their party, now they come forward with this resolution today. The distinguished gentleman from Kentucky, the ranking member, goes on Fox News and says that he and his Republican colleagues are focused like a laser on the topic of Hunter Biden. That's what they're focused like a laser on. While we're fighting for the common interest, for the common good and the public interest of the American people, with the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act, defending women's right to choose against their theocratic schemes to dictate to the women of America what their personal choices are going to be. Their laser focus now is to distract everybody with...
Will the gentleman yield?
No, I will not. I'm not quite done yet. If I get to the end, I got some time, I'm happy to yield to you. So, they say that they're interested in defending the security of the country, which is why they're laser focused on Hunter Biden. But guess what? They have refused to support any investigation into the worst mass domestic violent assault on the Congress of the United States and the Vice President of the United States on the U.S. Capitol in American history. They had a proposal for an independent outside 9/11 style commission to investigate the insurrectionary violence and attempted coup of January 6, 2021, and the Democrats agreed to it. 5 Republican appointees to that panel, 5 Democratic appointees to that panel, equal subpoena power. And then, after we agreed to it, they pulled the rug out from beneath their own proposal. Why? Because the cult master himself, Donald Trump, said no investigation. He didn't want any investigation. So then we launched a select committee here in the House of Representatives, which they decided to boycott. Fortunately, it is a bipartisan committee with Democratic Chair Benny Thompson from Mississippi, a Vice Chair Liz Cheney from Wyoming. But still they refuse to support it because they're not interested, even though they originally tried to blame it on Antifa. I'd love to hear from them today if they still think Antifa did it, but no, that's not what we found. We found no Antifa involvement. It was Donald Trump's incitement of domestic violent extremist groups.
The gentleman's time has expired. Representative Higgins, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What an eloquent speech from my colleague across the aisle. America is watching the events unfold in Washington, D.C., and they are in awe that my Democrat friends can have things so wrong. America is done with elitist, career, arrogant politicians. And one of the pinnacle examples of that is Joe Biden. For God's sakes, the man was elected in 1972. He's been in office for 50 years. He's the definition of a career politician. He's the big guy in the capers. This thing reads like a Dick Tracy dime novel, man. Who would not want to read about the exploits of the grand criminal political family, the Bidens? Who would be surprised that from the loins of the big guy, Joe Biden, a fresh Democrat criminal would spring? Hunter Biden. We're absolutely going to look into this stuff. We're going to reveal it for the American people. My Democrat colleagues are not going to like the results, but there's nothing you can do about it, because this House will once again belong to we the people, and we the people demand accountability out of this body. Madam Chairman, I thank you very much, and I yield the balance of my time to my colleague, Mr. Cloud.
Thank you.